Hi guys, welcome to this short tutorial on excretion and the kidneys in the human body. So a lot of people have requested that I do all of the biology topics from the textbook as these videos, and I'm happy to oblige to that. So today we'll be tackling excretion, and this is one of the bigger topics that you would most likely be asked on in your exams. So the first thing is a definition on excretion. So excretion is the process by which waste and harmful substances produced by chemical reactions in the body cells. That is the important part of the definition. And this describes the way these are removed from the human body. Right? So it is important to differentiate this from egestion or defecation. Right? Defecation is going to the toilet. This is also getting rid of waste, but feces are undigested food. Right? So undigested food do not participate in those chemical reactions that in the definition for excretion. Okay? So egestion or defecation is not excretion. Okay, so excretion is important because if we did not get rid of these waste products, these are harmful and build up and could kill and damage our body. Right? So everything needs excretion. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about excretion in plants, and this is very important. You could be asked about this in your multiple choice exams especially. Alright, so plants produce these waste products. So oxygen is the most important waste product because we use their waste products to breathe. Now carbon dioxide, you might think, well, I know carbon dioxide is used by the plants, but just like humans, plants respire, they undergo respiration, and a waste product of respiration is carbon dioxide. So they also excrete some carbon dioxide. Water is another important excretory product in respiration. And finally, we have some of the less popular waste products, organic waste products. Tannins is an important one you would see in your multiple choice exams, alkaloids, anthocyanins, calcium oxalate, etc. But the first three are extremely important and you should know. So how do plants excrete? Well, all the gases, such as the oxygen, the carbon dioxide, and the water vapor, they diffuse out of the bottom of the leaf through the stomata. Okay, that's the main way there. Organic waste products can actually be stored in the dead parts of the plant. So dead tissue like heartwood. In wood, you might find organic waste products. Okay. Now let's quickly move on to the products excreted by animals, and this will be much more familiar to us. So carbon dioxide is a big one in our respiration. Water, again, in respiration. Nitrogenous compounds are extremely important to remember. Okay, now this is what is found in urine. Okay, so urea is found in urine, and urea is made up of nitrogenous compounds. Okay, and this is very, 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 very toxic. That is why people with chronic kidney disease need something called dialysis, and this is what we will talk about later on in the class. And finally, we have bile pigments. Alright, so bile pigments such as bilirubin, they are produced by the breakdown of red blood cells, the hemoglobin in the red blood cells, and these are also excreted in the urine and feces. So how do we excrete these products? What organs help us excrete these? Well, it's actually very simple if you think about it. So again, the kidneys will excrete the water and the urea in urine, right? Water and urea are the two major components in urine. We will see some more coming down there and later on in the class. The lungs obviously will excrete the carbon dioxide. The skin is an important organ. This excretes water, urea, salts, and also heat. Heat is basically a byproduct of all the products of excretion, but especially the skin helps excrete heat. Okay, and the liver will finally excrete the bile pigments. Okay, so these are the four organs you need to remember, and these are the waste products that are excreted by these said organs. And a very simple list to remember. So let's take a look at the kidneys in more detail. So we have two kidneys, right? We could actually survive on just one, but we have two. So each kidney could actually be divided into 3 regions. So let's take a close-up of the kidney. All right, so you could see that we have the outer region that is called the cortex. You could see this kind of light pink region here. That's the outer region. We have the inner region of the kidney that is called the medulla. Now in the kidney we also have more structures here. We have the pelvis, right, which is a kind of hollow region that contains the renal artery, the renal vein. Now the kidney is a living structure. It needs to be supplied with blood to the renal artery and also the vein. Okay. Now we also have the collecting duct. The collecting duct is what collects the urine after it's being processed by the kidney. And we'll talk about the whole processing of urine very soon. But in short, the urine is processed by these two main organelles here, the Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus. Okay. And finally, we have the pyramid, which is the inner part of the medulla. It's part of the medulla. Okay. All right. So this is a diagrammatic representation of your body. So when the urine is produced in the kidney, let's use this kidney here, the urine will then flow down through the ureter, right? Ureter. And then it will enter the bladder. Here you can see a bladder. Okay. Now the bladder will keep and store the urine until it's time to urinate. And you will urinate through the urethra. Alright, that's why I stress so much on the ureter and the urethra. You need to know the difference between them. Okay, the urethra connects the bladder to the outside environment, while the ureter connects the kidney to the bladder. Okay, the sphincter muscle is what keeps the urine from leaking out of the bladder. Okay, so let's go now into the nephron, which is what is actually the main component of the kidney to produce urine. So each kidney is composed of thousands of these nephrons. Okay, so it begins with a Bowman's capsule. I'll show you what that is in a very detailed diagram. And then it goes through a glomerulus, and then there's a lot of different coiled systems in the nephron. Okay, so let's go to the nephron. Here we have it. It looks very complicated, but it really isn't. Alright, so the first thing that we need to pay attention to is the glomerulus. Now, there's an arteriole, which is a small artery that branches off from the renal artery and runs all around this nephron, right? So this whole squiggly looking thing here is the nephron, and the red is the artery. You can see that the artery interacts with the nephron all over, right? Now you will see in the glomerulus, the arteriole kind of balls up into a very tight knit ball there, right? So the blood is going to increase in pressure at this junction here, and what that is going to do is that it's going to filter certain things into the Bowman's capsule. So the yellow over here, this is a C-shaped structure, it's called the Bowman's capsule. Now the blood here contains a lot of waste products, all the urea and salts and all kind of different things, right? So because in the glomerulus there's an increase in pressure, it's going to squeeze these substances out of the blood and into the Bowman's capsule. And we call that ultrafiltration. Okay, ultrafiltration. Now it's important to know some of the things that are filtered in ultrafiltration. So some of them are glucose, amino acids, different hormones, vitamins, water, salts, and especially urea. So you need to learn all of these different things that are filtrated. Now certain things are not filtered. So large cells like blood cells and proteins, they cannot pass through and go into the Bowman's capsule. Okay, so let's go past the Bowman's capsule now. Here, if you follow my blue marker, we are going down this first squiggly line here, and it's called the first convoluted tubule, or the proximal convoluted tubule. This is where reabsorption takes place. So not everything that goes into the Bowman's capsule will leave the body. There are some useful minerals and salts and also the water that are in the Bowman's capsule that are not actually waste products. Okay, so useful substances will be reabsorbed, right? So Bowman's capsule is number 2. The proximal convoluted tubule is the third important thing there. So glucose is important to maintain your blood sugar. Amino acids, the hormones are important, vitamins, water is important, and some salts are also important. So a lot of the things that were filtered in the Bowman's capsule is actually reabsorbed. Okay? So we go from the proximal convoluted tubule into this loop. You could see this loop of yellow here. Right? Look at that loop. And it's called the loop of Henle. Here, water is mainly absorbed in the loop of Henle. Alright? Now from here, the loop of Henle, we go back into another squiggly tube here, and this is called the second convoluted tubule, or the distal convoluted tubule. Alright, so there's the fourth one, and distal convoluted tubule is the fifth important structure. Right, what is reabsorbed in the distal convoluted tubule? Especially salts and water. Now there's a special hormone in the distal convoluted tubule, and it's called ADH. The body will secrete this hormone, right? And I'll show you what that means very soon. The final structure that the urine goes past is the collecting duct. Okay, the collecting duct is the sixth important structure. Now, all the useful substances would have already been reabsorbed by the time the urine goes into the collecting duct. Okay, so anything excess or any waste products that are in the collecting duct will be excreted from the body as urine. Alright, and that is a short rundown on how the nephron works. Okay, so let's move on to this subtopic called osmoregulation, and this is where I will get into the hormones now. So osmoregulation is essentially the regulation of body fluids and blood in the body. It is very important to prevent water from moving too much into cells and cause them to burst, or moving out of cells and cause them to dry up. We know about this, right? So essentially, if our body fluids become too dilute, the cells will be the more concentrated structures, and water will enter the cells and burst and die. If the body fluids become too concentrated, they will be more concentrated than the cells. Water will move out of the cells, they will shrivel up and also die. Alright, so we need to assess how the body gets water and how the body loses water. So how do we get water? We drink it. It's actually present in food, and respiration produces water as a byproduct. We can either excrete the water, or we could use the water if the body needs it. Okay, now how do we lose water? Well, when we urinate, water is lost in urine. When we sweat, we obviously lose water. And finally, exhalation. You know, if you exhale against a mirror or glass, you would see condensation starting to develop. Well, that is produced by water vapor leaving your body. Okay, that's why when you talk a lot, like how I am talking now, you will get dehydrated and you will feel to drink water. Alright, now what role do the kidneys play in osmoregulation? Well, this is where the ADH and the distal convoluted tubule comes in. So, let's pretend that this is your distal convoluted tubule here. Okay? If the body says that there is too little water in the body, or the plasma is too concentrated, the body is going to secrete a hormone called ADH. This is anti-diuretic hormone. Now what this hormone does, it encourages the distal convoluted tubule to absorb more water than it usually would, right? And therefore the body will take up more water from the urine. However, on the other hand, if the body says, well, there's too much water in the body, or we have enough water, it will not secrete ADH, and therefore the distal convoluted tubule will absorb less water, or maybe none at all. Okay, that is the purpose of the distal convoluted tubule and ADH. Now, what produces ADH and what controls it? Well, in the brain, right, let's pretend that this is the brain here. You know what I mean, look more like a tree, but it's really the brain, right? We have an organ here that you may not have heard about. It's called the hypothalamus. Okay, it's over here if you want to get the spelling, right? So the hypothalamus is what detects the concentration of the blood. Okay, how much water we have in the body. It is going to send a signal to a gland. This is called the pituitary gland. Okay, so the pituitary gland secretes ADH. Okay, so if the body fluids are too concentrated, it's going to tell the hypothalamus is going to tell the pituitary gland, yes, we want more ADH, please make. Okay, and it's going to tell the distal convoluted tubule to absorb more water, and that's how that works. The last thing we need to talk about is kidney failure, because we spoke so much about the importance of excretion, the importance of osmoregulation, and the role that the kidneys played in both of those. So what happens to somebody when their kidneys start to fail? Well, the nephrons stop functioning. So you can't remove waste from the body. You can't osmoregulate. So therefore, you need to do something about that. The first and the best way is a kidney transplant, which is sadly something very rare in the Caribbean, right? This is more first world medicine, right, where someone donates a kidney and the recipient gets that kidney and can function. The second option is dialysis. Okay, now dialysis is what we usually use in the Caribbean here. So that's what we're just going to talk about for a minute. So in dialysis, the blood from a vein goes through a dialysis machine, and the machine operates like the kidney. So the machine is going to take the blood and filter it just like the kidney would, and then return it to the body, right? So the machine does the job of the kidney. All right. However, dialysis must occur at regular intervals, and it must occur for the rest of the person's life. Right? And it's very inconvenient because dialysis usually takes about 3 to 4 hours at a time, and a person will have to dialyze maybe about 3 to 4 times a week for optimum functioning. And the process of dialysis really takes a toll on the human body as well. So a lot of dialysis patients, they eventually get very sick. Their heart starts to give a lot of trouble, and they get even sicker from heart failure as well. And it's such a common thing, renal failure, that I'm sure a lot of you probably know someone who has to do dialysis. So that's why the kidneys are so important. Without the kidneys, we die. Without excretion and osmoregulation, the human body will suffer. All right, so this was a very short video on excretion and osmoregulation, a very important topic that could come and probably will come in your exams at any point in time. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I look forward to making some more.